Welcome, my name is Sofie Pok. I'm here to represent BaBylissPRO, and we're going to talk about some foundations of fading that are super important for you guys to understand. And we're going to be talking about a new product that just recently launched. This is going to be really great for a lot of stylists all across the globe who are trying to figure out how to get a more consistent fade when you're doing any kind of skin tapers or skin fades across the head. I'm going to go over some really difficult techniques that'll help you in the beginning. One of the hardest things about barbering is when we're fading, every single head shape out there has a different challenge. So always when you know the process of what you're supposed to do, it still can get a little difficult because the head shapes are different, the dents in the head, all that kind of stuff is different, the densities of the hair, the growth patterns. So I'll be using a model today that has dents in the back of the head, and we're going to go through it together on how I can get a nice consistent blend. But one of the first things, guys, if you guys want to enter the raffle to win this custom effects, this is priced, I think, brand new at about $260, somewhere around there. But it's pretty much a custom build. This just recently launched this year. Earlier in January is when we first brought this piece out where you can create your own custom colorway. One of my favorite things about this is having the ability to adjust and choose this. Hold on, let me get a zoom in on that. Is choosing this blade right here. And you have a variety of different ones that you can choose. And this one right here in particular, this is a taper blade, graphite taper blade. That's why you can see this end right here is like a super beveled shape versus like your fade blade, which is more of a flat surface. So I have the taper blade on here, and what I really love about this is that it pretty much assists your fade because of that bevel. So you get a nice scoop, whether you see scoop or not. This is allowing you to get that extra assistance. So when you are doing your fades and your tapers, you have a really nice soft finish at the end. So if I could recommend you guys a blade, I would definitely choose this new graphite taper blade. So if you guys want to win, this is how you can win. Engage, leave comments, and then it will be a random selection throughout the group chat that will win this. So you'll win this. You will also be winning a brush. You will also be winning another brush, like a neck duster, a water bottle, and then the Influencer Collection cape, which has if you guys have seen the Influencer Collection Babyliss launched last year, I had the black effects, Rob had the white, and Hawk had the red effects. So we have these like specialized capes that you will also win. So make sure to engage, ask me questions. We're going to shoot through them as we go. So yeah, I'm excited. I hope you guys are too. This is always such a fun process to learn, especially if you are stylists. Don't be afraid. I started off as a stylist, so I understand that little middle ground of not having enough information, but at the same time, it's something we learn through experiencing it over and over and getting those repetition in so that we can feel more comfortable when we're already going through this. So I'm going to take you through the model. I'm going to show you guys the model. Hold on one second. Let me adjust this. All right. So I want you guys to see here. So before we actually get into it, I hope you guys are loving my quality stream from my camera. I figured once we do these type of Zooms, sometimes it's really hard to see if it's from an iPhone or iPad. So I've linked this up with my camera to bring you guys the best quality possible so you guys can see it in the way that I'm seeing it in person. All right, so one of the other things about the custom effects clipper that is fantastic, I'm going to show you guys right here. Hold on one second. Let me adjust this. Okay, so when you look at these taper adjustment, I want you guys to look at this little taper arm right here. This is where it gets really nice and comfortable for us because it pretty much allows you to know where you are in the haircut. Let me see if I can get a focus on that. Hold on, guys. I want to make sure I get this the best for you. Okay, so when you swing through this piece here, there's locking detents inside right there. You can see the little notches. So there's about 5 of them. So every time you move the taper arm, it literally falls into each of those slots. And what that really does for you is that it allows you to keep consistency while you are blending hair. These clippers stay fully charged for 2 hours on a full, which is incredible. If you have 2, it's really great because I switch back and forth between one and the other. So then I'm always cordless. And again, this is the taper blade. It's got the bevel. Okay, so you're looking at this model here, right? Whenever it comes to prepping the hair, one of the first things I always do is making sure that there's no hair that's laying over where I can't see where I'm working on. So this is already short, so everything is already prepped and ready to go. Now, when you are fading, what I mean by head dents, if you guys have already started doing fades and tapers on your clients, then you kind of maybe already understand. Sometimes it's really hard to get the blend consistent because everyone's head shape is a little different. Let me scoot this back really quick. Hold on 1 second. I want you guys to really see this, because once you can understand how to get the dents out of the hair, that's when you're going to get some pretty great consistency in the fade itself. And this the same goes for when there is head rolls, anything like that. You always have to make sure you know where everything is before you go into the hair. Do they have replaceable blades? These run on plastic guards, which to me make it the easiest because you don't have to pay $20, $30 per size when you do like metal detachable. For me, I believe 1000% plastic guards are the easiest system to use, which is why I love BaBylissPRO brand. And using this and having that taper arm really helps you versus something that's detachable that you got to pop the blades in and off. This is going to allow you to get the most consistency and not having to guess when you're using. If you are using metal detachable, you have to kind of guess on what angles you're holding it. This allows for more accuracy because everything has a system and a place. One of the main guards I want you guys to all keep in mind when you are working to skin fades and that kind of stuff is there's 4 blending guards that are a must-have. No matter where I go, these are the 4 guards I would always bring with me. And that's going to be your 0.5, your 1, your 1.5, and then your 2 guard. So the half guard and the 1.5, these are specialty guards that didn't come until later. So these are the ones that are going to be your main blending ones in between that kind of transition from the skin to the hair, and then that in between of a 1 and a 2. Because I don't know if you guys remember, but the old set that you used to get when you would buy clippers, it was always 1 through 8. So that 1.5 didn't exist, and then that half guard didn't exist. So later down the road, it became more regular to have those in the set. And there's a huge difference when you do actually use them. And once you finally have them, and if you have been using only 1 through 8, you're going to notice a complete difference. Okay, so we're going to look at the head shape, and we are going to make our first guideline. I want to show you guys this real quick as well. This is the matching trimmer, custom effects also. This recently launched, so you can actually customize your very own trimmer as well to match your clipper. My matching clipper is not here at the moment, but you can have an idea of what it looks like. Again, another thing you get to choose is the blade. If you want to know the difference between the different types of blades, I have videos on my YouTube channel. It's Sofie Stay Gold. You'll be able to find a video breaking down the different types of blades there are. So when you are building any of these tools, any of these custom effects, you'll know exactly what to look for and what is like what you would gear towards. They both have pros and cons, so it's better to know, because especially if you're spending a lot of money on your tools, you kind of want to know like why you're buying certain things. So I do a breakdown of that. Okay, so we're gonna look at this guide right here, and we're gonna try and find our first guideline. Let me take those glasses off real quick. Okay, so when you guys are fading this way and you're pressing this into the hair, this is gonna be the tightest length, right? It's gonna be the closest. And then when you flick it around this way, this is gonna be able to get out that other line, the previous line. So let's see. All right, so I'm going to bring it up pretty high because I want to be able to elevate over this, right? So we can get that nice even gradient. So soft guideline, easy in, easy out. That's how I always feel it. If you put in hard lines, those are going to be really hard to blend out. So keep it soft. The way I determine like how far up or whatever depends on the growth patterns, depends on how much space their neckline is. So there's a couple different things you got to look at. Sometimes I measure to the ears. So if it's like a low taper, I would have put the low taper at the lowest where it's the most dense. I judge it on the natural pattern. So see right here, he's got a little peak here. This is further down, and then it grows the most dense in this area. So that would have been my guideline there. So now I'm kind of moving more towards like a mid and high taper in the back. I usually like to set their head completely straight. You know, I have them sit and look straight ahead just as if they're like, you know, walking around. I want to make sure I have a solid first guideline, and I want to match that all the way across. So this is up to you guys. This is a preference choice. It's a style choice. Some people prefer to go straight across, and some people do the curves. The curves, the why people do the curves is because you have darker edges on the side. So you get to choose which one. But whatever one you choose, just make sure that's the one you follow all the way up, because that'll create the consistency that you're looking for. So again, guys, if you are just tuning in, make sure to leave comments and questions as you're watching for a chance to win your own custom effects. How many haircuts do you think you can do before having to charge it or charge it? That depends on the person. Some people cut fast, but you have a full 2 hours of it running on a full charge. And that's considering also how many haircuts you get by your habits of being able to turn this off in between. I'm so used to it. Like literally, if this tool, any tool comes off the head, I've already switched it off, and that helps me save power. I've seen some people, they just run it for the whole time, and that's when it can get really hot. So you want to look out for that and build a good habit of turning it off in between. So depending on that, depending on how many haircuts you do per hour, I guess that would kind of give you kind of an idea of figuring out how long or how many haircuts you can actually do with that. All right, so I have the line, right? I have my solid guideline all the way across. Now I can completely blend this all out. And as you can tell, there is causing no redness on the neck. Right here, you have to remember, this is a very sensitive spot. I have all zero gap tools, which means the blades are pretty sharp. I've gapped every single one that I use because I like how close it can get to the hair. So me going this way instead of this way allows for this area to not get irritated at all. At the same time, I'm still have a very light touch to the scalp. I'm not applying much pressure. I'm allowing the tools to do the work. All right, so now that we have that there, we can start blending up from here. Okay, so someone asked you, they have a hard time fading behind the ears. It's going to be the same way. The way I'm describing right now, if you blend in sections, it's really going to help whatever part of the haircut you're at and you're doing that fade. If you're blending behind the ears, I'm assuming you're doing a fade and not a taper. If you're trying to get like that super fine guide or whatever behind the ear, you just got to make sure everything is in sections. That'll help a lot for the cleanliness of the cut. Where can you purchase this clipper? Great question. This custom clipper you can purchase on this app. Hold on, let me pull it up. The app is called, Babyliss Custom FX. And this is what it looks like. And you'll hit the start building. And this is the fun part, because you could literally build this from home, get it shipped out to you, right to your door. Once it loads, you'll see the two options right here. You got your clipper that you can customize. I know that's really hard to see. There's a clipper over here and a trimmer over here that's all white that you can build from scratch. Definitely check that out. So Babyliss Custom Effects app. It's literally super cool, and you can match it with all sorts of things. So these are two of my custom builds so far. All right, so first guideline, I'm gonna follow the same exact thing. Again, guys, if you wanna win the custom effects, go ahead and leave comments, because that puts your name in the running. It'll be a random selection of who gets to win their very own custom effects. All right, so I have it all the way open. So this closed means it's the shortest, cutting the most. Long means it's cutting the least amount, right? All right, so it's all the way open, because I always start open because I can always take more off. I always give myself that cushion, because the last thing I want to do is take someone's hair too short and I can't put it back. So this is a way for me to save what I'm doing and making sure that I have a cushion to save myself during a haircut. So see, I'm following pretty much my same guideline that I did before. I want to follow that. And when you first start out fading, you probably want to make sure your guidelines are a little wider, kind of like this. When you guys go too small with the guidelines, they become more difficult to blend out. So if you're fairly new to it all, I would start with bigger guidelines and then make your way towards more difficult styles of fades and doing the super thin condensed style. What I mean by condensed is these guidelines. So see the difference? This one's wide and then this one's really short. So this is going to be a lot harder to blend. So that's more for your like drop fades, all the heavier weighted looking cuts where there's like, you know, like those Jersey Shore style of fades, like the Poly D's. Those are all condensed fades. So they're small guidelines. Practice with the wide guidelines first. So everything right now to this point is just a no guard, all the way open. These are not heavy. They look heavy. It's all metal housing so that it feels really quality-like and durable. The bottom right here feels like a dumbbell or like a mag flashlight. And then I have this extra grip on here just for myself. I just like to have a little bit of extra. And I want to go as straight as possible all the way across, right? So this is where you start working with the curves, right? You guys can see all the different curves. I'm pretty careful with it. And this technique that I'm showing you is one that will help you from going too far up, because the last thing you want to do is start low and then you keep chasing the lines and it just keeps moving higher and higher, and sometimes it gets readjusted because we took a little chipped area too high up, so now we got to readjust the whole thing. This way that you're going to do it, it allows you to stay in your section so nothing keeps chasing higher. So what I've done so far, this obvious line here, right? That's my stopping point. So now from here, I'm going to blend everything back down. So I won't even move on. So I'm going to go back down and blend this right back in here. And that's why you have the locking detents, because now it's going to be super easy. I just work right underneath it. So one notch down. Typewriter, go all the way across until I get to all the way closed. And what I really recommend a lot of people do is start with tapers. Really learn how to do these tapers and learn how to fade within, you know, smaller sections, because it's going to translate the same way once you get into fades. But instead of jumping into it and like losing yourself in the process, especially if you haven't done too many of them, break it down first and allow yourself to like really process like how to do tapers. Okay, so I worked on that other side. This is just a regular fade brush. If you guys are familiar with baby brushes, that's where we first seen this. But with baby brushes for like nails, this bristle was super rough. This is actually a soft bristle, but it's nearly impossible to remove all the hair if you're using a comb. So we barbers need some sort of brush to actually remove the excess hair. Because what happens sometimes is if you don't do that, you might see a certain hair that you thought was there, and then when you cut it, it creates a hole somewhere else. So this is a way for us to make sure that we remove and clean the palette before we move on. All right, so as I'm moving through this haircut, every time I'm closing the lever, I work a little lower. And once I get to the closed position, that's pretty much all the way at the bottom to connect into my previous line. So you guys can see this side over here. I worked on that already just so I wasn't walking back and forth. So you guys can see that transition blend all the way in. So do you see now, like having this guide here, it keeps you from moving up. Having that stopping point literally saves me, because I never have to think about where I'm at either. It's just there to guide. And as I'm working through this, I am doing a lot of C-scoop. You know, you hear that a lot, but what happens and why you do it is because you want to make sure that you're setting up the next guideline nicely for the next size. If we were to run the clipper with the head shape, we can easily make a lot of new lines into the haircut that we might not want. So this is a way for us to like you can't really see it because my movements are so small, but if I had to exaggerate everything that I'm working with, like the on the lower part, it'll be completely in contact. And then as I move up to the guideline that I wanted to stop at, this is where I flare away. So they're pretty small movements, but I'm actually flaring away once I move into an area that I want to stop at. How do you fade on people who don't have the right hair for it? To be honest, I think most people can be faded. It's just some hair is more difficult than others. There's always a way. I try my best to make it work for everybody. There's different types of fades maybe that work better than to say that certain people just shouldn't have a fade. It could be a length. You know, fades don't always have to be skin. Fades could be number 1, fades could be a half size, fades could be a number 2. It doesn't necessarily mean they all want a skin fade, so that's something I always clarify when I have my appointments with my guys. It's like, okay, you want a fade, but does that mean a 0 skin fade or a trimmer fade or a number 2, number 1? There's kind of a lot of options for it. Someone said some of us fade downwards instead of bottom up. So you can totally fade down, but if you're fading down into skin like this, you're gonna get lost. It's a lot harder to blend. You can easily do like a 3, 2 to a 1, square it off, nice and simple. But if you were to do a 3, 2, 1 and everything I just did in reverse, you're gonna lose a lot of these lines because it's gonna be harder. So that's why the skin portion, you kind of want to do bottom up. I've not seen someone blend top down. And if you can, that person probably just has done it for a really long time. But for the most part, the hardest part of the haircut is the skin fade itself. So I attack that from bottom to top to blend into the hair, because this is going to be a lot easier to blend as you move into the hair versus trying to get this consistently all the way across. So hopefully that makes sense. All right, so I'm going back and forth, and I just want to make sure I get everything that I can before I move on. And when I'm going through this process, I go through like my regular blend, but then I go back in and I redefine anything else so I can get it super tight. Because the better you can get it, the more value your haircuts can turn out. The details make all the difference. All right, so now you guys really see this little head dent right here, right? So as you can tell, when you're looking at it just straight on, this is all the same size, but there is a density darkness here. So that's what I'm going to try to cut into a little more just on that area. And this is what I mean with the head dents. Usually you want to size down like a half size or just one step lower just in that area, just so you can get that nice gradient all the way across. So usually the refining part for me usually is like a second pass, because I always have to like fix different areas just depending on growth patterns, and especially on the back of the neck, this is where there's a lot of those. Yes, anything that's notched. And when you're thinking about a 0.5 guard, so there's no guard on here yet. This is all under a 0.5 guard. So everything is just open and close at this moment. This is why I really recommend this clipper, because as you can tell, we've already just kept working in sections and you guys are watching everything blend out. All you have to do is just making sure you zero gap your tools properly. For a lot of you stylists that are getting into barbering, this is something I wasn't given the information of. So I remember getting out of school, once I started doing fades, I didn't have the proper setup, like adjustments on my tools to allow me to get this close without having to apply so much pressure. There was this idea when it came to trimmers that the only way you can get that super clean line that you guys all see on Instagram was to press really, really hard. And what happens is you get a lot of redness and irritation. But once you adjust your tools properly, they literally glide on its own without having you to apply that much pressure. So you should never really apply pressure. But so if your tools are adjusted properly, you'll notice that the tools will do the work for you. Okay, so now that we've done the same, we've pretty much completed the skin portion, right? Now we can move into the half guard, 1, 1.5, just to wherever the rest of this length is. We're gonna blend into that. Someone said, do you fade the same way for all textures? I do, but when it comes to curly hair, it depends on the style. Sometimes you have to fade with the grain, depending on the cut. So with curly hair, I do the same way here. The skin portion, I do the same way. But depending on how long the hair is that's transitioning from here to here, sometimes you have to go with the grain so you're not cutting too much off. And then you'll just be combing a lot more than usual, because with curly hair, as you're cutting, the whole thing will move. So you have to make sure everything is in place of how the haircut is supposed to look at the end. Corner cutting is a very popular and essential part of barbering. Pretty much what corner cutting is, and I'm glad somebody brought that up, but to give you guys an idea, corner blending is pretty much like people using scissors or shears, and you're cutting into the holes, right? You're trying to lighten the shade. And of course, you can do this all day long on your haircuts, but it'll take a really long time sometimes. You get the same effect doing it on clippers, but here is a cool trick that I'm going to share with you guys. When you have this all the way open, right, as you guys know, I work with always a cushion because I could always take more off. But I would, if you cut in this 90-degree to that area, you can cut the least amount of hair. And then if you want to take off more without even adjusting this, all you got to do is rotate this and then do the same thing. And then if you need to cut off more, just rotate. And as you become more flat, this is going to be your closest of without even having to move this. So you have a full range to cut into these dents as you're using a clipper to do any kind of corner cutting, especially for like little indents. All right, so now same exact steps. I just applied my half guard here, okay? I start all the way open as always because I like to work as a safe with my safety. Same thing. Take about the same space of guideline as before, which I would say is probably closer to like an inch. So this side, I have my guideline now, right? You guys can see right here. So now I'm going to blend everything back down, right? We're going to start with creating the new guide zone, and then we're going to blend right back down. So now you're really going to see this little dented area and how we're going to fix that. And when you're working on the back of the head, this is where you're going to really pinpoint growth patterns and you're going to work against it. This is going to allow you to really get those hairs, because oftentimes, like say for this area, I had growth patterns grow this way before, and if you're only going upwards, you might not always get it. So if the growth patterns were like this, I had to cut specifically on the corner against it this way for me to get a nice blend on this side. So definitely look out for that, growth patterns. I'm always dusting off my clippers, my hands, because when you start working with really short hair, you guys do not want hair splinters. They are very painful, especially if they get under your thumb, because that's going to be your finger for turning off this button. So it can get really, really painful. It can get infected. I've had friends lose a fingernail, so definitely be aware of that. So now I'm going to do the same exact thing on this side. And if it helps, because you have that guiding zone of telling you where to stop, you can work on certain areas however you feel comfortable. Usually when I first started cutting hair, I would go all the way across so that way I wouldn't get lost. I've done this so much now that I kind of know where my steps are, so it's easier to work in quadrants. But if you don't feel comfortable yet, I do highly suggest you do the whole thing at once so your lines don't get out of place and everything stays, you know, consistent all the way across. And also I cut by sound. I don't know if you guys have experienced that yet, but as you're cutting, especially when you're fading these like sections and you're trying to, you know, making sure that you don't go up too high, I can hear exactly where it cuts, and that's usually a sign for me not to go higher because I can already hear it cutting, and it helps me stay in that area. Okay, so now same exact thing. We're gonna go in with our one guard. Same steps. So you guys can kind of see my process is pretty the same in just different guards as I move up. And while you're doing it, you're just trying to match all the gradients. So how I look at hair is I see it as a gray gradient. I'm trying to get the most smooth transition possible so that when I finish the haircut, you don't see the lumps. You just see a smooth finish. And that's kind of the challenging part about barbering, is that each person you get is going to be an entirely new challenge to match all of the gradients that you're seeing. And a lot of it is practice. So if you guys are barely getting into it and you're not seeing a lot of consistency, you know, don't feel like you're behind or anything like that. It just takes a lot of repetition to get to a good place. I've been doing this for like 11 years now, and I'm still going through different processes when I'm working through hair, because every single guy or girl has a different challenge. So it's always like brand new, I feel. Anytime I have like new clients, it's just like another challenge, which I think for me makes it like super fun. All right, so now we are using the 1.5 now. So now everything is going to look like it's starting to blend back into the existing length. Depending, someone asked, how long does it take for me to do a fade? If it's like a super basic fade, something like this where there's not a lot of length, it's like a clipper cut, I'm roughly 45 minutes to an hour, just depending on the density, because some super thick hair or curly hair could be a lot more challenging. But when I first started cutting hair to get the repetitions in, I was working in places that forced me to kind of cut on the faster side. You know, the appointment system was a little faster, so we were doing like 30 minutes or less per slot. And what that really taught me was just like building that muscle memory. And that's kind of the goal of what you're trying to build. Usually when you're doing, when you're learning this kind of stuff, is you have to build that muscle memory. And what I mean by that is like, so I've spent 11 years, right, learning how to fade on my right hand. If I were to switch to my left hand, even knowing what my steps are, I'm not going to get the same result because I haven't built that muscle memory. So that's what I mean, where you have to get those repetition in on your hand, on your strong hand, because that's what's going to make the difference. So the more time you put into that, you'll get a whole lot better control and feel for when you are doing these kind of cuts. All right, so now we've completed pretty much all of the 1.5. So I'm going to fine tune these little spots right here. This is the part that usually really pops out. The reason for having the levers, if you're asking me for speed purposes, I am not the one to give that information because I love to spend time on quality and making sure that they get the right cut. So for me, timing is not a huge thing for me. But the thing with the lever that is still really great is if you learn how to use it and follow this, as you get more comfortable with it, you can skip a couple steps. You don't have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is just to help you guide, but as you move through it, like I don't use this whole thing anymore. I usually use open, close, and then the one in the middle. So it's just for you to get used to it, and then you can start skipping it. The same way you can skip with guards. So I'm just showing you guys the long way so you guys can see every single step. But once you understand it, you can skip around. So I could start with my 2 and then go into my 1, and then I could do the half at the end. So it just depends on what rhythm you're trying to build, because you can pretty much make your own once you get more comfortable with it. All right, so here is where I'm going to be working on. If you guys want to know more about the zero gap feature, I literally have a ton of videos on my YouTube channel. If you guys check out my YouTube channel, it's Sofie Stay Gold. If you search that, you'll find all my zero gap videos, and I'll explain like what it looks like before. The most recent one I posted has a closer version of it, so you'll be able to see it better. But check that one out, and that'll explain to you what the zero gap is. And if you are going into kind of skin phase, zero gapping is definitely going to be something you want to look into, because it's going to make your tools be a lot better for you, because it's going to be able to connect those really short, tight hairs a lot better than a stock clipper. Because most stock clippers are not going to be adjusted, because the reason for that is because if they're too sharp, and with people not knowing how to use them, you can really potentially hurt somebody if you're cutting like this way. Like this is why you don't want to ever cut this way unless you are more advanced, because cutting it this way with zero gap clippers, you want to make sure that the blades aren't overlapped. So if you guys want to see that video, just check it out on my YouTube or my Instagram. Instagram's Stable31. I have a lot of like little tool tutorials on there as well if you want the short version, but if you want the longer versions, you guys want to check it out on my YouTube channel. So I hope so far, we're almost approaching the end of this class, that I hope that I have brought you guys some value in this kind of work, and maybe helping you guys maybe figure out something that you may need to adjust on your tools, or getting that blend in correctly and what to focus on, because there's a lot more to it than what people actually think when it comes to cutting short hair. I mean, the lessons could go on for days on these type of topics. And again, guys, if you want to enter the raffle and win one of these, I hope you guys have been commenting in the comment box. They will be doing a random selection to find somebody to win one of these. This is a super awesome clipper to have, especially for the holidays. You get to go into next year having something brand new, super nice. And if you don't end up winning, make sure to download that app, BaBylissPRO Custom Effects, and you can build your very own colorway with your own blades and everything else. All right, so see, I'm literally going back in and really fine-tuning these spots. And especially with kids probably have the most dents, and you guys probably have seen those where they have literally dents like right here on the side and sometimes a third in the middle. Those are the most difficult to blend out completely, especially because their necks are also really small. So to get into those tight areas can be a little challenging. But that's where I truly learned how to do it, and learning how to really dig into dents, or just figuring out the half size, dropping the half size. It really helped me, because with kids, I was cutting a lot of kids at the time, and that was something that really happened a lot. So that's another thing too, guys. If you are in the shop, take everything that comes in through those doors because they'll teach you a lot. So the half is not cutting close enough, so I'm actually going to take this in a little more. So see, I'm on my corner blending right here. So now you could tell it's gotten a lot lighter just because I had to size down from there. And removing dents is a little, frustrating at first, but you start to learn how to like it because it just makes your work look so much cleaner when you have when you can get all these gradients really consistent. Just very lightly moving through it. All right, so that looks a lot better. I mean, I could literally refine this for days, but we're not going to have time for all that. But you kind of get the idea now. So thank you guys. I hope this was helpful for you. Hold on a second. I hope that the camera angle was helpful for you guys. And then once you get into more advanced blends, that's when you can throw in that foil shaver on the bottom because that just makes it more difficult to blend out. And then having your zero gap trimmers to blend out that foil line, but also using the straight blade at the end and the sides. That's something that I'll probably do after this. But again, you guys, thank you so very much. Thank you Behind the Chair for having me. I hope you guys get in frame. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, thank you also to BaBylissPRO for also hosting this class and doing the giveaways. More than so many people can use an extra clipper, especially a really good one. So shout out to them for always putting out these giveaways. I mean, we do them pretty often. If you guys get a chance to check it out, Babyliss Custom Effects app, and you can build your own clipper and trimmer. So again, thank you guys Behind the Chair, and I'll see you guys next time.